the one, the only, Ben Sion.
Good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Off It. Today we're doing Maseches Gittin Daf Chavtet, number 29. Great share for you today. Talk about whether Shliach can make another Shliach. If you appoint an emissary, an agent to go, or a get, can he make another agent? We'll talk about that. Let's finish yesterday's discussion. The bottom of Chav Chet Amud Beis, the last line, Ika de Amri, a different version of the discussion yesterday. Amar of Yosef. Yosef says, Lo shana al beistin shel tikachavim. The last mission was talking about, can you assume that someone yotze laharik, he is convicted of a criminal offense, of a capital offense, he's going out to be executed. Do you assume he's going to die? Do you assume he's going to die or not? The Mishnah says that we're not sure. We give him chumrei chayim and chumrei mason. We treat him both like a dead person and a live person, or machmer in both directions. So Yosef in the second statement is saying, Lo shana al beistin shel tikachavim. That's not only talking about we got a verdict in a non-Jewish court. We're not sure. A Jewish court, for sure, once he is condemned to death, he'll definitely die. We know Masechet Sanhedrin, even after the person is convicted, he's going out to die, people can be malamed schus, can find schuzim for him, and we call him back. We would overturn the punishment. So the Gemara says, the normal occurrence is that people will only search to acquit him when he's still in the middle of his court case. Once he's convicted and he's going out to be executed, people are not likely to find means to exonerate him. Lema Messiah, say a proof to this. Kol makom, the Mishnah Maseches Makos says, Kol makom shiamdu shnayim v'yomru midim anu yesish ploni shnigmar dinu beistin shal ploni uploni eda. We testify. We saw him be tried in a different court, and we know the Edom. We can tell you the names of the Edom who testified against him. Hareza Yaharik, and he was convicted in that court. So we kill him in the second court. So you see what? That once you testify that someone's killed in the other court, we don't worry that maybe he'll be acquitted afterwards. You're able to testify in a different court and get him killed. The Gemara says, no, Dilma, that case is different. When he runs away, there we can presume that no one's going to testify on his behalf. That's why he's running away. It shows evidence that he probably did the crime that he was convicted of. Tashma, Shama Beistin Shal Yisrael, a different proof. They heard from Beistin Shal Yisrael, Shal Omrim, Ish Ploni Meisi, Ish Ploni Nera. The Beistin is us talking to themselves. They say this person died, this person was killed. Al Yasios Ishto. Sorry, Yasios Ishto. You could assume the man died and his wife can remarry. Mekum Natrisim Shal Avik Chavim, Ish Ploni Meisi, Ish Ploni Nahari. Here, executioner, non-Jewish executioner, they're saying the same things. This person died, this person was killed. Al Yasios Ishto. You can't trust him. You can't trust them to assume that the man actually died. His wife can't remarry. My mace, my nera. What does it mean that he died or he was killed? You live a mace mamish that he died, or nera mamish, he was really killed. The kavasagabadichavim. When it comes to non-Jewish executioners, why don't we believe them? Even by non-Jewish people, if they're just talking amongst themselves, they're talking with no purpose and not testifying, right? They usually tell the truth. Elalav, what must be the explanation of the Bryce? The maze Yotze Lamas, he's going to be killed. Venera Yotze Lar, he's going to be hung. Only if the Jewish court is talking, you can marry his wife, right? But nonetheless, the Jewish court, and you can marry his wife. So we see that a Beis Yisrael, once he's convicted, is considered like he's dead. It's a proof to Rav Yosef. At least the second he could Rav Yosef. Lolam. The Gemara says Meis Mamish. Really is talking about the Bryson means he actually died. V'nerag Mamish. So the question reverts back. Why by the non-Jewish executioners we don't believe them? We believe them. That's talking about things that are not relevant to them. Executioners, they take pride in killing people, and they would, even if it wasn't actually true the person died, they would probably want to brag and say that he died in order to beef up their resume. So therefore, they're not believed. The Mishnah says, "Hamevi get be'eretz Yisrael." He brings a get in Eretz Yisrael, right? You don't have to say find a nechta, find a nechta. Bechala, and he got sick. He was on his way to give the get, and he went to the hospital. He couldn't give the get. He could appoint a different shliach to give it, a second shliach. If he says to the shliach, I want you to give the get to my wife, and when you give it to her, take back whatever she was holding on to, my watch, I don't know, take it back and bring it back to me. So you cannot make a shliach to do that and to give the get and to take the watch back from the husband, because we say by a pikadon, by deposit, we don't say a person if he appoints you to be his agent, he trusts you to handle his object, doesn't trust necessarily a third person. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Kahana chalasnan. It says chala specifically in our Mishnah, only in the case where he got sick. Right? If he didn't get sick, you can't appoint another shliach. We'll discuss why that really is in Ian with Ben Sion. The Ian share, Amen Ian share given every daf. Whereas the Pshita, Chala Katani. Why would you think differently? That's all the Mishnah says. Maybe our Mishnah doesn't just mean he got sick. Normally when you appoint another shliach, the reason you do it is because you're a chala, or we'll see a different onus happen, an unfortunate circumstance happens, which makes you unable to give the get, and that's why you transfer the get to somebody else. Kamash Malan, no, that even if you decide to do that, you can't do that. Hechidami. What's the case? If he said to the shliach, bring it, even if he didn't get sick, he can appoint another shliach. He says, you bring it, even if he got sick, you can't appoint another shliach. We'll see in a second who's this Tanakama and Rosh Gamliel. If you want to say like Rosh Gamliel's opinion, even if he says holech, and he says chala, you also, when he got sick, you also will be able to appoint another shliach, the sanya. Where are these two opinions found? Brayso says holech get del ishti. The Tanakama says if you say give or bring this get to my wife, hareze mishachol biyad acher, you can appoint another shliach. At holech get del ishti. You, specifically you, bring this get to my wife. Hareze lo yishlachenu biyad acher. You can't send it to someone else. Shimon Omer benkach or benkach, and a shliach also shliach. Shimon says that you can never make a shliach. There's different answers to this brayso. You could say it's really the Tanakama. Holech means, yes, you can appoint a shliach, but only, it doesn't mention this in the brayso, but only in a case where he becomes sick, an unfortunate circumstance happens. At holech, really, at holech is the rule. At holech, only you could bring it. V'chala shiny. V'chala shiny means there's an exception to the rule. Exception to the rule, if you got sick, then you could appoint a shliach. Even if you say at. You could even say our Mishnah follows Shmuel, v'chala shiny. Right? He says never works. Whether you say holech or at holech, it doesn't make a difference. But chala, in that unfortunate circumstances, you could make a shliach. We'll discuss again why. This is the halacha. Why is that unfortunate circumstances or chala, which is an example of an unfortunate circumstance? In Ones, the Gemara says you could make another shliach. Sanan. Mishnah says maybe you get eretz l'shav v'chal. Harizim meshach v'yaracher. Reminu, a brayso which seemingly contradicts us. Amar l'shnayim tnu get liishti. O l'shlosha kisvu get v'tnu liishti. He says two people give a get to my wife. Now the get was not yet made yet. Basically he's saying give a get to my wife. You write it and sign and give it to my wife. Or he says that three people write a get and give it to my wife. These people write the get and they give it to her. In specifically only these people that he appointed, yes. Aval shliach lo. They can't make a shliach. So you see what? Our Mishnah says if he's chala, he can make another shliach. Amar Abai, hasam time of mine, mishum bizayon the baal. He's making a shliach not just to give the get, but also to write the get. He's embarrassed that he doesn't want to write a get. He doesn't want a third person to know about that. Hacha baal lo kapit. But here, the husband doesn't care, so potentially you could make another shliach. Rava Amar, a different reason, different distinction. Mishum de milinen. When he says two people or three people write a get and give it to my wife, that's instructions. He's not actually giving something to the shliach. He didn't have the get yet. He's telling you write the get and you give it, right? So he's giving over words to the shliach. Even if you can technically could hold the shliach and appoint another shliach, you can't for words, for instructions, you can't appoint another shliach. You're not holding anything physically to give to another shliach. My benai, what's the difference between Abaye and Rava? Shliach matana. If he's a shliach, not to give a get, but to give a present, right? So according to Rava, again, if you said, I want you to write a document, a shtar matana, so again, mili b'misra l'shliach can't do it, but according to Abaye, he's not embarrassed, so they're writing a shtar matana, so therefore you would be able to give, a shliach could make a shliach. Well, plug to the Rav Shmuel. Abaye and Rav are arguing the same as Rav and Shmuel. Rav and matana ain't a get. Rav says a present is not like a get, which is basically what Abaye says. Shmuel Amar matana hareyu get. Shmuel says like Rava, the matana is like a get. Both cases, mili l'mimser and l'shliach, words cannot be given over to another shliach, a third shliach. The end of the Mishnah says, if you say to the shliach, when you give her the get, bring something back from me. Amar shlachish kanshana Rebbe taught in our Mishnah, Eina shol rasha lahashel, Eina socha rasha lahaskir, right? The end of the Mishnah says that a person doesn't want it to be kadam to be yad acher. So I give someone a deposit, he can't deposit in someone else's hands. So similarly, we learn if you give someone to borrow something, right? He can't let someone else borrow that. And if so, you give someone to rent something, he can't rent that to another person because if you don't want your deposit to be in someone else's hand, you probably don't want to borrow an object or rent an object to be in someone else's hand. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, Zu afilu tinoko shvei Rav and Yodim asa. That the Tana doesn't have to teach us. That's obvious, right? If I let someone borrow it, I don't want a third person to borrow it. If I rent something to someone, I don't necessarily want a third person to be able to rent it. Ella, what's the Mishnah talking about? Zinin the Gita nami lo heavy. It invalidates the get. That's what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. If you say to your shliach, give the gershon to her in the main floor of the house, and he is megarish her in the attic on the top floor. Al Tagarshal Biyam, the gershon as well. He says, give her the get with your right hand. You give it with your left hand, right? Specifically, he made a tanai over her. He said, give her the get and take something back, right? When you go ahead and appoint another shliach, so you might have given the get, but you can't be the shliach for taking that thing back. So therefore, you didn't fill the tanai. So the Gemara explains, the Chuliam heicha denafka la'ape v'yava le'chefetz v'hadar shaklamine gita Chuliam lo pligi de gita ma'al yehevi. Everyone agrees that if I do appoint a shliach to give the get, and he appoints another shliach, and she gives him the watch, the pikadon first, and then she takes the get, everyone agrees that it's a good get. Technically, you could make a shliach. A shliach could be a shliach. He pligi heicha the amrle, when he said to him, Shkol mina chayfetz, his instructions to the shliach were first take the deposit from her, first take my watch back, v'hadar havla gita, and then give her the get. V'azal iyu, and he went ahead v'yav la gita. Well, he appointed a shliach. Well, see, it doesn't make a difference if he appointed a shliach or not appointed a shliach. V'yav la gita. He didn't follow the instructions. First he gave the get, v'hadar shakol mina chayfetz, and then he took the object from her. Rabbi Yochanan posel bo koshka mishlucho. Rabbi Yochanan says in both cases, whether it's the second person or he even appoints another shliach, in both cases it's invalidated because you didn't fill the tanai. You didn't do it the way the husband wanted. Reish Lakish says even the shliach, a third person, would do this, because again, this is not significant. The fact that he says a specific order, whatever order it happens in, it's okay according to Reish Lakish. But we pass on Rabbi Yochanan that you have to be precise. The Mishnah says, maybe get Medinas Hayam. You bring a get from Medinas Hayam, from outside Israel, v'chala. Right, now when you bring from outside Israel, you have to say b'fani nechtam. So on his way, on his travels there to Israel, he became sick. He's infirm. He's in the hospital. Also shliach in basin. He has to go to a basin and make a shliach in basin. U'mishalcho va'omer lifneim b'fani nechtam. You have to testify in court that you saw it written and signed, and either you make this third shliach or Beis Din makes a third shliach. There's two different opinions on Rishonim. Ve'ein shliach achron, the last shliach, sarach sheyom rafani nechta. The last person, the Beis Din makes another shliach. He doesn't have to say vani nechta. He didn't see it, right? All he has to say, al omer shliach Beis Din ani. All he says when he gives the get, I'm a shliach Beis Din. That's good enough. The Gemara says, "Amrli Rabbanan la'Avimi breder Rabbi Avao." The Rabbanan said to Avimi, who was the son of Rabbi Avao, "Boy minei Rabbi Avao, ask your father, shliach to shliach mishave shliach or lo? Can a shliach of a shliach make a shliach?" Okay. Amar Lu Haloti Boilachu. That you shouldn't ask. Right? That's basically a fourth person. Does that work or not? He says that you shouldn't even ask. Right? Our Mishnah says the Shliach Achron, the last Shliach. You see that the last one, indicating there he's the last one. There could be other ones if there were other ones that were last. Shliach Achron, the last one, meaning it could be there were many other shluchim in between. That would be okay. The last ones, there could be many. The real question should be, can Mishavi be based in or Afilu Shalom be based in? If a shliach wants to make a shliach, and maybe possibly a fourth shliach, does he have to do it in based in or not? Amrulay, they said to him, Halo bin Boylan. That's not a question. Right? The fact that when he goes in our Mishnah, he goes to based in, and the person who is appointed a shliach by this shliach or by the beis din, he has to say shliach beis din on you. So therefore, you see that it has to be done through a beis din, unless it's an onesh, right? A shliach can make another shliach and through a beis din. The previous Mishnah taught that if he's chala, you don't necessarily have to use a beis din. You can do a shliach, make a shliach if it's an ones. Here, this Mishnah is teaching us, this Gemara is teaching us, you can shliach and make a shliach if a beis din gets involved, even if it's not an onus. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Masni Hachni. Rav Yitzchak had a different version of the conversation. Amalei Rabbanan laAvimi Bredi Rabau. The Rabbanan said to Avimi, who was the son of Rabbi Abau, "Bami name Rabau. Ask your father. Shliach the shliach mishavi shliach. The shliach when he makes a shliach with beis din or shalom beis din. Does he make it in beis din or not? Amar Lu v'ti ba'ilachui mishavi shliach ba'alma. You could ask the question: could a shliach make another shliach? And can you make a fourth shliach? That's not a question. It's not a shliach akron, right? It says in the Mishnah the shliach akron. Now, like I explained before, shliach akron means it could be the last of many. So you see, you could have a shliach making a shliach making a shliach. The question is, with beis din or shalom beis din? If you want to make a third shliach, do you have to do it in beis din or not? That's not also a question because it's not yellow omer shliach beis din. You always have to say shliach beis din. So therefore, it has to be done through a beis din. Amar Rabba, shliach be'eretz Yisrael osa kama shluchim. Rabba says a shliach in Eretz Yisrael, right? He can make many shluchim. Amar Rav Ashi, and made rishon but lukulan. Rav Ashi adds in, let's say the husband makes a shliach, who makes another shliach, makes another shliach. In Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to go to a beis din, right? Because you don't need to testify fani nechta. If the first one dies, Rabba says, but lukulan, the second and the third, they're batel because they came from the first one. Amar Mar bar Rav Ashi had the abba de katnusa. What my father said, he said in his youth, he made a mistake. Ilumeis baal midi mishashes behu. Right. Obviously, if the husband dies before the get is given to the woman, even though there's three intervening shluchim, it's obviously not good. Kuluhu mikoch man ka'asu mikoch the baal ka'asu. They're all coming through the husband. Isei labal isnu lakulu. Leisei labal isnu lakulu. Well, it depends on the husband. If the husband's alive, it's good. It doesn't make a difference if the first one died. If the first one died, but the second and third are coming from the koach of the husband, and therefore it works. A man sent a get to his wife. Amar shliach lo yadanala. The shliach, the man appointed a shliach to give it to his wife. He said, I don't know who she is. Amar lay. So the husband said to the shliach, Zilya habi la Abba bar Menyumi. Give it to this rabbi Abba bar Menyumi. Diu yada la v'leiz of Elizva nahala. Give it. You know who this person is, Abba bar Menyumi. Give it to him, and he knows her, and instruct him to give it to her. Asav la ashkach la Abba bar Menyumi. He went to go to find Abba bar Menyumi. He couldn't find him. Ashkachei Rabbi Abau, Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. He found three rabbis sitting around, Rabbi Abau, Chanina bar Papa, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. V'yasir Rav Safra Gabai, Rav Safra having to be sitting next to them. Amrulay, these three rabbis said, Misar milach kami didan. Well, act as a beis din. Tell us the instructions that the husband gave you. The chiyaisi Abba Manyumi naisvinu v'leiza v'leizvinu la. Right, you're not going to want to stick around there for a long time. Abba Yumi frequents us a lot. We'll see you in the next couple of days. So just pass over the instructions to us, and when we see him, give us the get, and we'll give it to him. We'll give it to him, and then he'll be able to give it to the wife. Amalu Rav Safra. Rav Safra was sitting next to them, said to them, "V'hashliach shlonitan legerushin." This man, right, was a shliach not to give the get; he was a shliach to give it to Abba and Yomi. So, how could Beis Din step in and, after he testified in front of them and he gave them the get, to give it to somebody else? They don't have the power to do that. He wasn't a shliach that took over for the husband. He was a shliach to give it to somebody else. Ichzafu, they were embarrassed. They got the ruling wrong. I'm a Rava. Rava says, Kafchinu Rav Safra l'tlas Rabbanan smuchei. Rava commented that Rav Safra made out a fool out of 3 rabbis who were smuchim, who were officially ordained. I'm Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi heard about this. My Kafchinu. No, he didn't embarrass them. He didn't destroy them. Mika Amar le Abba Yomi velo at. Did he say, right? Originally he said to the shliach, I want you to give it to her. Then the shliach said, I don't know her. So he said, give it to Abba and Yomi. Technically, though, he's okay if this first person is a shliach. So therefore, he legitimately had the right to give over the rights of the get to the Beis Din. Ika da Amri, some say Amar Rava Kavchinu Rav Safra Litlas Rabbanan Smuchi B'Tausa. Rava said a different version. Rav Safra made them eat their words by mistake. Amar Ravash. Rashi commented, "My Tausa." What was the mistake? What was Rava referring to? My Amar Le'Abba Yumi V'Loat. Right? Like we explained before, he wasn't saying give it to Abba and Yumi and you can't be a shliach. He was saying you could be a shliach, you just don't know who my wife is, therefore give it to Abba and Yumi. But technically you could be a shliach, so therefore he was a shliach. They didn't do anything wrong. Who governed the shadal Gittin bito? A certain man sent a get to his wife. Amar li l'shliach lo sisfa nahala ad tlasin yomin. I want to wait 30 days. Don't give it to her until 30 days pass. It just begot tlasin yomin. Some unfortunate circumstance happened to the person. He ended up in the hospital. He couldn't, after 30 days, he wasn't available to give the get. Astak Bey the Rava. He came in front of Rava. I'm a Rava. Chala. What's the Mishnah? The Mishnah says on Amid Aleph that if he gets sick, Taimamai, Mishum Da'anasu. Because Anas is unfortunate circumstance. Hainami Anasu. Here also, an unfortunate circumstance happened to you. Maybe he didn't get sick. Maybe it was, he had to go travel overseas for business. So, therefore, no one has happened to you, so therefore you can make a shliach. Amr Leis, he said to him, Sor milech kami didan. Give over your words in front of us. So the basar, tlasin yomi meshvina shliach. After 30 days, we'll set up a shliach. And we'll give it to her. It was a Beis Din. Amr le Rabban on the Rava. Rabban said the Rava, ha shliach shlan nidan legerishenu. This shliach, within 30 days, right, he came to you within 30 days. Within 30 days, he wasn't capable of giving the get. He said to only give the get after 30 days. So you can't take over the shlichus during the 30 days. Amar lahu, so he said back to them, since technically after 30 days he could divorce her, who he's considered like a shliach that has the ability to do a gerushin. Right now he doesn't have the ability, but overall he has the ability, so therefore he could make Beis Din a shliach. The Gemara has a different concern. Maybe in the interim of 30 days, the husband reconciled with his wife, and it's a get yashan. He secluded himself with his wife, and if he's secluded himself with his wife, the apostles the get. Milos not. Then we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah later on says that I'm giving to my wife a get. Right now it should take effect. If I don't come back within 12 months. If I don't come back within 12 months, from right now it could be a get. He ended up dying within those 12 months. So he never came back. Harezeh get. The halacha is that it is a get. Right? Because he never fulfilled it tonight. He didn't come back within 30 days. Slicha. We asked, a different concern, right? Within 12 months, maybe he reconciled. Maybe it's a get yashan. He secluded himself with his wife, as we explained many times. A get yashan. If you, before you give the get to your wife, you write a get, and then you seclude yourself with your wife, so we're concerned that maybe you reconciled, and the get was batil. You can't use that get anymore. Amar Rabba Rav Huna, Hachi Amar Abba Mari Mishmei the Rab. This is what Abba Mari said the name of Rab. Omer Nemenes Alai Lomar Shalobasi. He says the reason in that case, right, we're not concerned that they reconciled, is where the man says, my wife is believed. Right? If the husband would come and say, I reconcile, we don't believe him. The woman here is testifying, I didn't seclude with him. So though he's basically testifying on a Beis Din, I give the rights of believability to my wife and not to me. That's the only circumstance we're not going to turn to get yashan. And here that didn't happen. Ichsif, so he was embarrassed. So Biglai Milsa, it ended up being Darusa Havai. It wasn't a case, he was going to get to a woman he was engaged to, not married to yet. Amar Rabba, Imam Ruben Isua, if we're concerned about get Yashon, that's only by an Isua, a married woman he reconciled. Yom Rubat Rusa, he's not going to seclude himself within a Rusa. Normally that wasn't the practice. When you're engaged, you don't seclude yourself in a Rusa. So it wasn't a mistake, his ruling. Amar Rabba, Havad that can be byline. This we definitely had the question. Ki, the top of Lamed and Aleph, Ki Mishalu Basin Shliach B'fanav or Shal B'fanav. When Basin makes a Shliach, right, he goes and tells Basin, I can't be a Shliach, you be in charge and make a Shliach for me. Does he have to do it B'fanav, and while he's still there, Shal B'fanav? Hadar Pashta, Vein B'fanav, Vein Shal B'fanav. He then obviously felt he had command of this question. He said it doesn't matter whether he's there or not. Shalcham Bitam, they sent from there, from Eretz Yisrael, Bein B'fanav, Bein Shelo B'fanav, whether he's there or not, Basin has the capability of making another shliach. That's the conclusion of today's shir. So basically we concluded two things from today's shir. One is that a shliach can make another shliach, only in a case of chala, only in a case where he's sick or he's an onus, unfortunate circumstances. However, there is a provision that if you use a Basin, get a Basin involved, then a shliach can make another shliach, because the Basin is basically stronger than the other person, and therefore he can make another shliach. Those are the two halachas that come out from today's daf. I want to discuss both of them, but really the first one, in Iyad Ben Sion, I'll discuss exactly why only in the case of honest can a shliach make another shliach, and why is it by Basin that even if there's not chal, not an onus, a Basin can make a shliach, a third shliach. Stay tuned, Iyad Ben Sion coming up next.